Welcome to Tech Talk Live. It's Tuesday, May 19th, 9 p.m. in the DMV. I'm Sam Giacinto.
And 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles, I'm Jack Armstrong.
Tech Talk Live is brought to you by AirPixels. AirPixels builds AI flight planning software that lets pilots pull off shots that used to take a full crew 3 takes on film sets, over rooftops, or anywhere a drone needs to fly smart. See what they're up to at airpixels.com.
And today we're joined by a very special guest. We've got David Leighton here with us, the co-founder and CEO of Stone AI Studios, a company at the cutting edge of where artificial intelligence meets cinematic storytelling. David brings over 30 years of Silicon Valley experience in tech, and he's channeling all of that into building a studio that specializes in AI-powered, production-ready visual content, from high-end documentary reenactments to unscripted storytelling. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Jack and Sam. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thanks for being on the show. And it's quite interesting to talk to somebody in the AI film space. There's been a lot of news, as you astutely mentioned before we started today. Right, there's a lot of players in the space, good, bad, and ugly. Um, and something that I always have to ask, were you an early believer of generative AI, or was there kind of an aha moment for you? Was it flipping a switch, or was it something that you saw and you're like, this is the future? I'm starting, I'm an early convert.
Oh, when I saw it, and really AI is always, in the 80s, the 90s, it was always the big industry, or the main thing happening, leading edge, right? But I think as users, we really weren't able to see that power. Maybe things were happening behind the scenes for us with our devices and just how companies operated. But once ChatGPT came, OpenAI released ChatGPT, I dove all in, because really it was like, wow, the power was there.
It became accessible overnight, right? It was sort of something where, yeah, because as you mentioned, there's always research, right? But now with the dawn of ChatGPT, all of a sudden you type your ideas into a chat box and the chat box chats back, which is fundamentally from the beginning of the internet, IRC and email and AOL and Skype, or whatever your preferred platform was, right? This that had been such a fundamental, like, instant messaging has been such a fundamental part of the internet. So to have something that you could, essentially talk to that wasn't human, I think that was kind of that aha moment for a lot of people. Um, and so I noticed you founded Stone AI with your co-founder Evan, and it's curious because you come from different backgrounds. He's maybe more cinematography focused. You're more of the technical cybersecurity focus. How did you two end up meeting and building this together? And I mean, how did these skill sets, I hate to use the word synergize, right? But how did they play off of each other or collide, day to day?
Sure. Well, Witty is another community and company I co-founded back in '89. And as that evolved, once ChatGPT came out, I said we really have to shift and make sure all of our community members understand AI, understand how to leverage it so they can stay current. So we started AI. Excuse me. I started running AI think tanks a few times a week, and Evan started attending some of them. I saw him speak at an event, invited him in, and just as we're working together, and I saw what he was doing, and we spoke to some showrunners, just as AI, as the film industry was just starting to look at it for certain shows. The big networks were still kind of no immediately. Um, but we felt that there was a real opportunity there, just because I think seeing the filmmaker, that's what's so important, I think, about this stuff. It requires the human and the domain experience. It's not just press a button, here's a script, create this. It's no, when you can have like these brilliant creative filmmakers, um, harnessing the power of AI, that's where it all happens. And Evan had been the lead editor at TMZ when ChatGPT came out, and that was
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So he saw it. He just dove in. A lot of the jobs were going away for people in that space, and he got it. So that's kind of what he was looking deep on. And you referenced some of the products you see on the site, right? And what these are workflows and ways we use kind of downloading his brain. That's camera angles and lighting and a lot of that stuff into being able to fast track processes and do what other people can't do.
Well, and just a follow up on that, what you just said. I think what's interesting is you mentioned that in some ways the power of AI tools becomes greater when you have existing domain knowledge, right? It's not just pressing a button and generating something that is a viable output. It still benefits you to have the knowledge to sort of say, here's what I want corrected, or here's why this is not, a production ready piece of content. And I thought that it's kind of more of an augment for people who may know how to use it at this point, versus something where it's like, I would like, I want a production movie, and then click a button. And it's like, you got to have some sort of, it helps when you are part of that domain already to kind of augment the usefulness of the tool. So I thought that was that's kind of an interesting point, really, for any domain, but especially filmography.
For sure, right?
So-
and if you, oh, sorry, please, Jack.
No, I was just gonna say, so like, obviously AI is very capable today. What are some of like, and it's getting better like every month, but what are some? I mean, other than like artifacts that are in certain frames, how are you like what are the next steps? Like, how close is AI to the quality that filmmakers really expect? Like, without a ton of tweaking in post or doing more editing. Like, I'm talking about the final output of AI. Like, I know that continuity is obviously a huge thing in filmmaking, but in AI, like, that those consistent characters are so important. And like, where do things stand? Like, how good is the technology today? Because you guys are obviously using very advanced models. It's not just like ChatGPT and Google or Gemini and Veo models and stuff. But yeah, can you walk me through like what are some of the limitations today, and how quickly you believe it's going to change?
Well, it's changing at such a rapid speed. This morning, a bunch of stuff could have come out I didn't hear about yet, right? We have our first show coming out on AMC, which is History's Greatest Machines with Dolph Lundgren. We did the machines, right? So like the space shuttle and just shots that weren't there. We had to recreate all that stuff with text prompts and have it be exactly the same. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, because there are some pictures, right? So I think that was a painful process, and we were able to hammer it through. And a lot of it was Evan and our team of editors that understand our AI system, and using, but Veo and some of the tools out there, like Veo's great, right? So I wouldn't just say no to Veo. And, another important piece is we have to be able to track provenance of everything. So that's where it kind of limits the tools. I don't know if that was an answer to your question, though, Jack.
Well, so yeah. And so just certain companies have policies, like what model you can use. Is that why it's important to track?
Well, for sure. And you have to, right. And then once it gets to edit, are they putting things in, right? Once we pass off to the company and they're editing it in to maybe their fuller episode, the AI pieces, again, I don't know that there's not really any like 30-minute AI shows yet. Maybe on some of the verticals, there's some things that are, I don't know if we want that as people, though, right? I think it's a combo. So we have to track that and track what's being used and what's going where. One thing I know that I don't know if yeah, it's probably public. Like Universal and Google, we did a big one of their top shows. We had done a whole for one of the production companies, kind of a whole opening. It came out amazing, and then NBC squashed it because no Google products. That was probably in October, and now today we just started working with one of the music subsidiaries, and we got the list of things we could use, and VO was on the list. So I think these things are just rapidly changing.
Interesting. Wow.
So something that stuck out to me when looking through, just kind of the about Stone AI, um, was that at least, from my very uninformed, view into the space, most AI video companies are chasing ads or music videos or kind of social content, whether that be, Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or whatever, short form video, whatever you want to call that. Whereas I guess Stone AI seems to have more of a focus on courtrooms and broadcasts. And I was curious what kind of led to the decision to choose that lane, or kind of approach that niche with more intention.
Sure, really opportunity. I a few months before we started it, and I'd met Evan right around then too. I joined the board of Cyber Bear Group that was founded by the former CISO at Splunk and Citigroup and Merck, and her background's like phenomenal. So I started learning a lot about that, and then when I met Evan, just how it could apply. And so these were really just about opportunities popping up because he got so many inbound calls. He was cameraman for many years on Expedition Unknown and Naked and Afraid, shows like that, where he'd be the one, that he takes all the risky shots, I guess. And when we just, once they heard he was doing AI and his agent let people know, we just started getting inbound calls. Now the court stuff came from, really how we build the software or the models, the protocols is around researching to death the character, right? Because if we know we're going to be doing like a pretty high level, pretty famous like country star, right? We need to feed everything about him into the character that we create of him. That's him, because then it can really help create those micro expressions in different scenes. Right. So I think a lot of it's just the approach of how things are being built. The the law stuff just came from, we built this kind of investigation tool where it was around a lot of the characters, and then just started using it for, scenes that we were doing for clients. And then we're like, well, let's look at, some of the legal things. And Evan had a good friend who's an attorney, and we talked about car accidents, right? And we're able to, when there's the car accidents, how can we kind of take witness statements, visuals of what happened, if there's any black box data in cars, weather reports from the day, social media scanning to see if people saw things, right? Some of that stuff we'd have to leave out. When it goes, with the court stuff, it's just like approved, things that are approved for the case, right? And we're able to kind of recreate an accident so people can see it and then show that what was created is from approved evidence. And I think some of this stuff's more relevant with like some things we've been talking about but haven't done yet is just some of these court cases, maybe like on IP protection, some that are just so confusing, where there's just terabits of content being sent from lawyer to lawyer, right? But if we can take all that, show that, look, we're going to create a visual where we have full chain of custody and audit trails that it comes from accepted documentation, and now we can show a visual of what's going on. I think that's where some of the value would be added, and really just to come out with fair judgments and that type of thing. if that makes sense.
So you're taking statements, and that's what's like being fed into the AI in those cases, right?
Whatever
That
whatever
qualifies.
is, right. If it was a witness statement, maybe that's approved because an officer took it. Maybe it's black box data from cars, visuals. What was it raining that day? Right? Other factual evidence that we could throw in so we can just show. We're not just putting on some AI show to make one side look good. We're just independent. Here's based on everything that was approved. Here's how you can visualize it. So that's where we're going. I don't think anything's been approved by courts yet because the things we've dealt with have been settled before it got there. But we do have, and we've tested this from several people high up, prosecutors' offices, things like that. That once we can show the provenance and the have chain of custody and audit trails, we don't see why they wouldn't approve it.
So yeah, I'm kind of curious, how does that metadata chain work, and how does that process of verification? Because a lot of, at least in courtroom settings, evidence can be challenged on its, on the merits, I guess, and I would say especially so, even given that, not to say AI content has a bad rap, but it certainly has had a lot of attention, and I think, falsely or not, has a certain, people are biased toward it in some ways. It's definitely not a neutral form of processing, in my opinion. But how do you counter that? How, if someone were to challenge it, is I noticed that it's kind of accountable in that every part or frame of the video can be traced to the prompt that created it, which I think is pretty unique. And I'm sure Sora or Veo does not do that. So I'm curious how that works a bit more, and how, if it were to be challenged, how is it? How do you defend, the validity of it?
Sure, and I think that would just be back to the source. Okay, you said this happened in this clip, and maybe they take out 3 seconds where maybe the person turned, as an example. We'd be able to go not just back to the prompt, but what informed that prompt, right? So maybe it was the skid marks or the statement from the witness or whatever the court had approved. So, right. So I think we're not there yet. I think every new technology, and depending on what part of the country you live in, what part of the world you live in. But again, we got to have the humans. The humans have the domain expertise, no matter what domain they're in. Like you said, Sam. Oil rigs. I met a guy at a I-4 last year from Koch Industries that goes out into places, looking at different oil rigs and things they have out there. And now he's kind of taking on AI because only he has some of that knowledge, where now they can leverage it for his skill set. So I just think in so many industries, it's so important to help educate, first of all, the people. And how can we do that? It's not the enemy. It can be your friend, but it's not just press the button, my job goes away, right? We have to have critical thinking and take time to express ourselves and use these tools, right?
Yeah. So what is the biggest feedback from the skeptics that you get? It's just taking jobs away instead of amplifying their voices. It's just another technology. A new camera comes out all the time. So it's kind of a new form of that, right? But what do you, how do you, because I don't think AI skeptics are going away anytime soon. I think a lot of people fear that, it's going to replace everything, instead of it's going to be that new technology that now gives you more of a voice. Right.
And I think that's just why we don't even like to call it AI. It's Stone AI. It's more advanced technology, advanced filmmaking tools that uses the latest technology. So I think, so I just think there's a lot of that. It's industry to industry, right? There, the strikes were happening, everything was going on right when ChatGPT came out. I think it came out a little before. So I just think it was very polarizing. People don't know what it is yet. They think it's, oh, I'm just can write a screenplay by putting in 5 words. Right? It's just how they would use it. I think has people have not been educated on it yet. And if you look at different technologies, I mean, it's been kind of the same thing in many cases: electricity, computers, the PC, the web. Yeah. So now with this, I think companies can handle things differently too, and there's big opportunities for companies to really empower their people. And rather than just saying we're using this, figure it out, because it's part of our enterprise deal with whoever, I think giving people experience to kind of see different things out there and how they can solve problems and just start shaving off a few hours a week of their time. And it's not like I feel like everybody wants a quick fix, and it's really not about that now.
That's kind of what the short form video has done, right? It's a quick hit, of dopamine content.
Right.
Like, why can't I fix my problems like an Instagram reel?
I know.
Come on.
I know. Right? Even the 60-minute episode of Law and Order. That's how long it should take to solve the murder, right?
Yeah, and even dramatic, TV dramas. Suits is like a great example. It's like, how do they read that whole document? They look at a document and know exactly what's inside of it in like 5 seconds. It's like, okay, like, that's cool. I wish I could do that.
Right. Now they have Harvey, the AI software, right?
Yeah. Might as well be AI, honestly.
No, totally. Right. But again, I think it's just like we have to remember we're so at the beginning of this now. So many things are changing daily. And just if you get outside of our bubbles that we live in, I moved up right before the COVID shutdown. I'd moved from LA to San Luis Obispo County, so kind of more of a rural area. Right. So it's just not, there's just a lot of people here that haven't heard of it or kind of heard of it or think it's how they'll write or use it to write emails. Even at CES this year, ran to a lot of clients that were from the software industry that, were, but still just might use ChatGPT to write emails or correct documents or things like that. And it's like, you haven't seen Notebook LM, you haven't used Prompt Cowboy, you haven't done this, right? I've got a whole list. And then even people I'll run into, oh, I got 2 great things you have to watch. You have to check out. I'm like, okay, I definitely know what these are because I'm like, and they'll come up with 2 things phenomenal that I hadn't heard of, still.
Yeah.
One follow-up I had too, I guess, given that, because we've all experienced the pandemic, right? And it's felt, it's true crime has had a moment, right? For lack of a better term, and there's also been sort of a parallel reckoning surrounding ethics, and how, how much can we dramatize a killer or someone heinous, and I'm curious how, given the use case of Stone AI, how do you navigate those kind of, ethical or moral ambiguity teas in the space, right? Because there's a line, it's not a clear line, and I think this is, kind of a valid critique, right, that has been leveled against. Really, I guess the true crime explosion. People, it's like a train wreck that they can't turn away from in some ways. But while it's engaging, it's also not without questions. So I'm curious how you approach that.
I mean, really, a lot of that would be more on the filmmaker piece that hires us. Now, do we want to take the job or not if they're trying to say, maybe the moon landing didn't happen and we're supposed to create a story about that, right? Or a show on aliens. Do they exist or not? Or people that say they're from other planets, should we be the judge? So I think that, I think with the content creators and manipulating the humans, yeah, there's some shady roads to go down. And just a lot of people, I have my dad's older, in his 80s, and I see these messages he's getting and deep fakes, right? So I just think it's we have to teach the humans. I think it comes down to the person behind it, really. Yeah, we spoke briefly about AGI earlier. I don't know that it's going off yet, and then just figuring out, okay, how can I make 100K today? And it's itself gonna say, oh, I'm gonna get lists of seniors and deep fakes of their grandkids and take money from them.
Yeah.
Right? Or just some of those scams we've seen out there. I think there's going to be a human behind this stuff for now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it is scary. Well, going off on that, do you mind, you come, with a vast experience in Silicon Valley. What do you, not only with AI and generative AI in the visual space with Stone AI, but your other expertise, what do you think, like, more from a security perspective, is something, other than, deep fakes and this, like, what are some things people should be watching out for, given this, given AI is being used for so many different purposes? Like, do you have, like, maybe from a company perspective, or a personal perspective, like, what does something come to mind, like, that people should watch out for?
Well, they have to shift how they're dealing with things, and I don't care what size company it is. Stryker, did you guys hear about the Stryker hack that happened? It was a pro-Iranian group, and it was, I think, March 16th. Erased 200,000 of their devices. The Stryker's a big medical.
Oh, yeah. A medical device company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think it's like once it gets in, it can do things quickly. So I think really understanding and shifting where, how, just being able to have your SOC, your security center on top of things. It's not just like find it and then fix it now, because by the time the and fix it happens, 200K of your devices are wiped. So I think that's what Cyber Bear Group that I was on the board of, and now we taking on a bigger role there, is asset intelligence and integrity, right? Just being able to know everything in your company, and then when something hits, to shut it down immediately or deactivate it. There's just got to be a shift in thinking. And I went to the RSA conference this year, which is one of the big security conferences, and a lot of the talk was just around that, right? AI, kind of AI to defend against and AI to defend. Anthropic came out. They showed their Mythos model last couple weeks ago, right? And then OpenAI, right? That's just going to start exposing vulnerabilities. I don't know if you all have heard of, excuse me, HNDL, harvest now, decrypt later.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, harvesting data.
Right. So they've been grabbing stuff for a while, encrypted data that they can't do anything with until they're able to kind of have their quantum machines or tap into some of these devices to decrypt things. A lot of that information may be older, and maybe companies did the responsible thing and killed it, but just a lot of info out there. And there are some companies now, like, all products, you have to be post quantum ready in the security space. Right. And it's not even just about for the security and the protection, but it's about business disruption. And how are you going to continue to grow your business if these things keep happening? Right. As well as compliance and risk. And you're going into, the UK where they have GDPR.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to do. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of companies, software companies, want to become SOC compliant, and obviously to get enterprise customers. Is there? I don't want to say is there a risk of doing that, but like in that process, is there like any dangers to look out for? Like I'm assuming I'm not as familiar with exactly the criteria to qualify as a software like that, but yeah, is there a risk in that process of like vulnerabilities being like injected at that point, like with AI or not necessarily, but
right. I mean, being like SOC 2 compliant, which I think is Security Operations Center. Don't quote me on that.
yeah.
It's certainly important. It's been, code injections is going to be a big issue, right? I know the Linux Foundation has been in a big fight with somebody else recently, right? Just because some of that open source code, there's like pieces in there, and what they're saying about Mythos is it's going to start uncovering all these vulnerabilities. There was an emergency meeting that I know Cloud Security Alliance, who we work with, was part of. They had like 500 CISOs over a weekend get together and just talk about this because it's going to expose everything. And while they've been in this kind of find and patch mindset, once it starts coming so fast, right? Like, the Lucy, right?
Yeah.
So
there's a turnaround time for patching. It's not just people like to think of, oh, you just apply a patch. It's like, great. When's your maintenance window? When's, what's running on this box? Like, what,
right.
who's going to, sometimes it's like, who's even responsible for it? It's like,
right.
It's like,
totally. Right. And, they're still looking at, in many cases, cybersecurity, the CISO and his group or her group as a cost center, when really that could shut the whole business down. And now, like, there's a new DORA law, and I don't know what the acronym, I just heard about it recently, that's in part of the UK, or maybe all the UK, CEOs going to jail, right? If there's stuff that they're not doing. They have to know about this. I think when Mythos came out and the conversations there, it's their job to know about it, free up budget to make sure they have the people, but know what to do, because now it's like brand new, and they can't kind of come again with that mentality where they're just going to find it and patch it, because by then it's too late. So anyway, it's an interesting growth time that requires a lot of humans in this cybersecurity AI space. So I think people that are maybe looking to transition, or there's been a ton of layoffs in these spaces, like, they need people with domain expertise, right? The cybersecurity experience isn't as important in many cases. They want people that know the domain. So anyway.
And you bring up a good point. When security works, it's a cost center, and then when it doesn't, it's like, why didn't we have this before? What could we have done to prevent this? It's very crisis oriented, and when it's working, it is not respected nearly enough, in my opinion. But I think that's a common. You just see it again and again. But coming up on the top of the hour here, Jack, did you have any last questions, comments, closers?
I don't. Oh, that's a good one. No, this is a great conversation, David. I don't know. Do you have anything we missed in asking you about, a Stone AI that we should cover today, or anything else? on top of your mind?
No, I'd say, it's all, look, I think in this world of like another thing with AI, all the messages and the overflow of information, it's about storytelling. It's about knowing who you're connecting with. So I think there'll be,
Yeah.
right. And I think every industry, right? Stone AI, we help enable that. But I think people are catching on. We need to have tighter relationship. The striker hack, crazy. We're doing a whole kind of talk about that on the 27th, but just learn from these things, right? And then learn tools, I would say Notebook LM, Prompt Cowboy, and then I use kind of all the LLMs, but learn new tools. I'd love to hear from the two of you what your go-to outside of maybe ChatGPT, Claude, probably use both of them, and Gemini, but any kind of tools you guys go to?
No, you brought up Notebook LM. That's Claude Code is another favorite of mine.
Yep.
I like Cohere sometimes. Command R.
And
it's a
I've stayed away
lightweight
from
model.
OpenClaw. I have not used
OpenClaw.
OpenClaw.
Me too.
Yeah.
It seems like a massive risk, and I don't really want something controlling my email.
I agree.
Just yet, maybe that's the one line I'm like, okay, just letting my agent run overnight while I sleep would sleep easy.
That's true.
Yeah, Manus has been good. I just started using Manus for some things, pretty crazy. And how about Prompt Cowboy? Have either of you used that?
I have not. No,
I have not. No, we should check it out. Yeah, there's so many tools. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I'm writing it down right now.
Oh, actually, okay. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I do this. So I actually do this a lot, though. I'll use Sonnet to refine. I'll ask it to just keep asking me follow-up questions until I have a prompt to give a bigger model. But I guess this is an exact
cool.
This is a very regimented. No, this is great.
Yeah.
Well,
and
nice.
they've grown. Yeah, they're in New Zealand. Anyway, all around the world, big towns, small towns. You can do this stuff anywhere, right?
So it's turn lazy prompts into good ones. So yeah, right. Cool. Promptcowboy.ai. Well, yeah, thanks, David. Thanks for coming on today. We really appreciate it. And yeah, Stone AI Studio is super fascinating to hear what you're building with that and all of your expertise. Our episodes are here every Tuesday, new episodes, and visit us on the web at techtalklive.xyz. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, everyone.